Hawkgirl, number 4, written by Jadzia Axelrod with art by Amanke Nahulapan, Alex Gamarez, and Hassan Atsmain Elhal. And in this, we continue Vulpecula's plan to get back to the Nth World. But to do that, we pretty much have Hawkgirl teaming up with Galaxy and doing weird shit throughout town. And me just trying to really understand the idea of how Vulpecula's powers work, what she is, and what
she gives
really
them
is
up
going
in
on
this.
in this book.
At this point in this book, she says, fuck all this. Like,
What
does
does
herself.
that mean, though? Because the idea of what she's doing is like, okay, for what I need to do right now, I need to make myself into a pure fox lady to open up a portal to bring out a dragon.
Seem to be a
that can,
fox. That's
she's
here's
always
the
been a
weird
fox.
deal.
It's a Vulpecula part of it, yeah.
She is a fox, Eric. I'll tell you. Here's the way I'll explain at one point that'll probably only make you laugh. But at one point, she might as well looked at me and you and said, fuck you, Joe Boo. I do this myself. And ends up there. Because the idea you're going to twist
She ran out
this,
of nth metal.
Well, because what was she doing? What does she even do in Gotham? You had that whole thing in Gotham. You end up have Court of the Owls, do this, that, and the other thing. At the end, she goes, well, that didn't work. And go, like it was like a little vacation.
Well, she made a bunch of monstrosities, and where'd they even go?
And I think that she's wasting whatever nth metal power, on nonsense. And even this idea of going back in time, or did she, nothing is spelled out. The Jadzia Axelrod is terrible. The only thing that I could say that's good about this is I could squint a little, and I think that there's actual Godzilla in this damn book. And then I'm like, all right, we got 2 Godzilla books this week, even on the cover.
It's a dragon.
But the play here, I said I had to squint, Eric, and pretend. So when you start off, the real play here, and I said it way back, and you ended up,
First issue.
giving, this is just going to be a Galaxy book. And yeah, you get some Hawkgirl, but it has been a Galaxy book, even to the point where the lessons learned, maybe bad, good, or whatever, to Vulpecula is the idea of being yourself. But since she is a villain, she decides she's going to be herself, that then leads her to be able to do what she wanted to do from the very beginning, but couldn't because she was pulled. It's nonsense.
I'm just still trying to figure out what Nth World is.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of talk about that, and is it just Hawkworld? Is it the idea of going there? Is it something new or whatnot? And at one point,
it seems like that's where she's from, and she's trying to get back there.
And it's weird. And at one point, you did have a story where to get back to Hawkworld, Kendra actually was like a key for, Hawkman to get back there. And that might have been a cool play. But in this, it's so past that, and it's barely anything about Hawkgirl at all. And even then, you're going to continue what happened last issue, where she flipped out and almost made it a racial thing. Hawkman, you wanted to go with the white girl. But that really does not give the actual concept of what these characters are and what
I agree.
Just throw out there. It's very odd.
It is very odd, but I will say this about Jadzia Axelrod, but the idea that this is the first writer who has actually said, since Scott Snyder fucked it up and said that I'm not Thanagarian, I'm Cuban, because everybody ever since Scott Snyder started using Kendra in his Justice League while Metal was going on has decided that, yes, she's Thanagarian. I'm like, no, she's not. But everybody kept going with
Brian
this.
Michael Bendis kept going with it. They kept
Jadzia,
saying, what about you? And
first writer since Metal to say no, thankfully.
Here's the weird thing in this issue, because I think that when she says that, it feels like, again, and it's true, it's right. But I think that maybe somebody got to her and said, oh, what are you talking about? Because in this, you did end up in that weird way that you had Galaxy fuse her wings to her to kind of make her like that. But to get that part, you have to really tell people that she is Cuban. She isn't from Thanagar. So that's fine. But even at the beginning, there's that weird play of her talking about, because I think, and I saw a lot of people complain, you're yelling about Carter not being in love with her, even though at points in the timeline he was, and that got stopped by, Crisis and things like that. And you still also have, it's very convoluted because of the reincarnations and things like that as well. But she's almost trying to convince us. She's trying to convince us here, oh, I didn't really have a thing with Martian Manhunter because it didn't really mean this, that, or the other thing. Because she, at the time when you had Shiera and Carter getting together and whatnot, she was with Martian Manhunter at that point, actually, in the books.
What do you, oh, yeah, so yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like trying to go, but she also dated at points Roy Harper. She ended up where Carter himself, John, she's had other people. And why is it that you have a book, and we said this about Power Girl with Leah Williams when it first started out, why aren't you showing a Hawkgirl and why she would be cool to like. If somebody didn't know about the character, man, that Hawkgirl's awesome. Oh, that Hawkgirl's cool.
I just thought you'd like her because she goes, go birds in this.
She does. But also she points in this fetal position. She's always yelling about other people. She ends up saying, even when she defeats the dragon, oh man, the dragon was right.
Really
I'm so
cool
depressed.
panel.
Like, it's all just being depressed. It's all, again, a lot of these books that are coming out, again, like Power Girl, really, and it's always I don't fit in, nobody likes me, I don't have a reason to be, and that doesn't really make it a heroic.
Overcoming that makes it a heroic deal, but when you have your issues during the fight become, okay, we have a dragon in Metropolis, we have Hawkgirl, we have Galaxy, but we also have Natasha Iron Steel show up, we have Kara Supergirl show up, and you turn that fight into Galaxy getting all woozy because of how hot Supergirl is, even to the point where Supergirl has to mention, well, you look at me too, Nat. And I'm like, what? We're fighting a dragon. Why are we all just coming on to Supergirl?
In Power Girl #1, the actual first issue of Leah Williams deal, I mentioned that this has now become kind of one of my, kind of pet peeve deal of, if you're going to have a big battle that seems like it means something and it's going to be, oh my God, are they going to survive this? You can't have them joking during it. This isn't a Marvel movie. A lot of people, that's their big complaint. It's always
not even joking, but even coming on to each other and not being able to fight because of how horned up they are.
And I think it was in the Power Girl one where they're fighting and it's supposed to be this big fight. It's like, man, Batgirl. Oh man, I know the night. It's in this. It's like, man, you're always looking at her and stuff. Like, concentrate on this fight because you end up getting your ass kicked. And so it's that weird play. But again, you also have stupid hot dogs. Like, usually I like this stuff, but when you're not getting Hawkgirl, and again, I'll go back to the idea where you say overcoming, this idea, that's the heroic part, but this still, it reminds me of what we also get mad at, say, a Tom King. The idea of setting up something that feels so unnatural and forced to then overcome it to get to the status quo, to be applauded that you actually did some character progression, because in this, it just feels way over the top. And in that, she is at this point in this issue, we're at issue 4?
Oh, we're at issue 4, yes.
She's made friends. She has people who love her here already. She seems to have this group. Like, she should already be to the point where, okay, but again, last issue, you went with the white woman. You went this. And here again, it becomes the idea of, like, Jadzia Axelrod is not going to give us, because it's so convoluted with the whole deal. Like, this ends up being, they got their great thing of reincarnation and I didn't, as if somebody decided for her not to be involved. Somebody decided, like, Hawkgirl isn't involved, she's bullshit, whatever. You ended up where at a
this
point,
kind of bullshit, though.
Carter and Shiera died. They ended up dying
then they
to defeat that Lord of the Void. Well, Kendra wasn't there. It's not their fault.
I'm sorry. When you said that, I'm sorry. I was thinking about when Kendra and Carter died and then they came back, because this is when Shiera wasn't around. But then I'm saying that once the New 52 happened and the times changed, stuff like that, we had Shiera back and things got a little wonky. Finally brought Kendra
they are
in,
wonky.
But with Venditti's Hawkman Definitive Origin thing, where you're trying to give Carter and Shiera that happy ending that they never got because of the curse, that leaves Kendra out in the cold because she's the furthest in the reincarnation. No, not the furthest, but the most, like, in the reincarnation timeline. But she shouldn't exist because Shiera never died now, so it doesn't work. She's a paradox.
And she was a paradox. She got seven. But in that, like, I don't know why Jadzia Axelrod, though, is going with that idea. I don't think Kendra would be. She knows the play here. She knows why is she so mad at Carter and Shiera. And to the point where
at one point she remembered everything and was in love with Carter.
But again, is she mad at Roy Harper? Is she mad at John Johnson? Like, that's all pushed aside to be this racial thing. That it's the only thing that Jadzia Axelrod can grab onto.
She realized the Carter stuff.
I'm saying though, and you end up where there was even a point. I'm telling you, I was looking at some reviews and going through some things, but there was points when Carter actually had asked Kendra, can you help? And she wouldn't. She said, I'm not involved with that. And that's why Shiera got involved. There's so many clunky things to just get this pretty surface level. Carter and Shiera bullshit. I'm sad and I'm going to go when we've seen her go.
It could be, though, the most interesting part of the story because it doesn't make sense with the current continuity and how it works.
You know what I mean? But she's not going to give us any sort of new it doesn't seem like she's even concerned with Hawkgirl. She just has that, I'm mad, I'm upset, and I'm depressed, because even in this, the big play is for Pecula going back in time to see Galaxy's setup, and that was the stuff that was
which is even the weirdest part about it, because we've had Vulpecula go back with all these different people to try to get the nth metal to, like, I'm going to give you this piece of nth metal when you're a child. You need to wear it around you all the time. Don't tell anybody about it. And then she's going to go back to the future, grab a hold of that person who's now soaked in all that nth metal energy, and she can use it for her experiment to try to get back to nth world. That's Vulpecula's plan. Now she goes to Galaxy, goes back in Galaxy's timeline to when she's a little girl on another planet, and like, oh, I see that you're about to come out to your parents and you're really upset, but something bad is about to happen in your future, which is pulling me to that. So, like, you didn't need to show this part because then you didn't go to that part. You went to a part where she, like, had her, people invade her homeworld. I'm like, you're just doing more backstory of Galaxy here that didn't, and like, it's so out of what we've seen with Vulpecula and how the time travel works. And
the only thing that it does is for Vulpecula to then realize, oh, I should just be myself, just like Galaxy.
Well, I mean, you get more out of it because,
it's weird.
But what Galaxy does, it seems like she has a hypnotic suggestion given to her, where at the point in time when Kendra is fighting the dragon that Vulpecula summoned with her powers, she is then, like, Galaxy gets all hypnotized. Like, look, I need to use my energy to make a shield around you that was impenetrable for her to be able to be a dragon slayer and take this down. That seemed to be what Vulpecula wanted, like, Kendra to do and Galaxy to do to her. So it just seems to be all part of, Vulpecula's plan to feel what she wants.
Because Supergirl's there, she gets knocked out of the deal. Steel gets knocked out of the deal. You have that, and then you end up having what could have been a big moment, like a really cool moment, something that we saw, actually, and I think it might be playing off that in the Venditti deal. Remember when we saw all the avatars come to fight? You kind of get that here a bit saying that, but that just kind of makes her get hit. It's very odd, but she ends up defeating the dragon, but then at the end, it just shows you that Vulpecula's just going to go back in time at one point that she talked to Ken. It's very odd. Like, the
and
whole
honestly,
thing,
this is what her plan should have been the entire time, because all the nth metal on this world is pretty much gone. And Kendra, her wings are all nth metal because of what happened to her in metal or death metal. I can't remember which one now, but she is the last source of nth metal and a lot of it. So you should have been getting Kendra from the get-go. You
should have been doing that the whole, and it should have been focusing on maybe setting that up for Kendra to do. Maybe you see that Vulpecula twisted and turned things to not allow her at points. Like, you'd have to deep dive. Again, I don't know a lot about Kendra's past or the Hawkman stuff. It is convoluted. Venditti tried to make it right. But if you're going through
this, he left Kendra in the cold when he did it.
Well, but you could have shown that more instead of just saying you went with the white woman. That's what we had last issue. It was crazy. And then this one, it gets back to that again. And in that, I don't know. It just seems like it doesn't fit, and you're really centering on making a character a sad sack that just does, instead of actually showing how cool she is in this. And then by the end, I don't know what
scene where she says she's a dragon slayer is badass, though.
Yeah, that's cool. But again,
so
immediately
good.
When she ends up taking down the dragon because the dragon talks shit for some reason, and then you end up where she said.
Well, no. Not only does the dragon talk shit, but this dragon that's been summoned by Vulpecula's
dragon
powers,
knows everything, right?
It can shoot you with whatever your weakness is. So here's a kryptonite fire. Here's an EMP fire. Taking out Steel and Supergirl immediately. And I'm like, all right, this is a weird-ass play to make this alien nth world for box lady who can time travel to open up a portal for a dragon that knows all. I'm like, shit, I don't even know how to try to explain this to somebody.
Look at Kendra's weakness is she's sad about her past, so he'll talk shit, but she still defeats it, but then goes down and is like, he was right. That stupid dragon was right. It made me laugh so much. And then she just starts screaming about this. I'm like, people are probably going to be scared of you, kid. Like, she just starts screaming. I don't know. I just,
it's not
this
good,
whole thing just is pretty bad. I like the art.
It's like you said, though, it's mostly a Galaxy book, and it's what, like, Jadzia wants to focus on way more than Kendra Saunders.
Yeah, and that background that you have where that was in that, like, most of that stuff, that's not new. That's stuff that was in the graphic novel about how she had to, hey, I'm a boy, I'm a girl, well, that sort of deal, and ended up using that to even hide from people on Earth later. So that was already set up, but she seems to want to get that out here because that's her concern. She wants to do this. And I saw a bunch of times that each time an issue comes out and people end up either, not liking it or saying something, she'll just go straight up with the idea where they're haters in like a bad way. Not that we read the issue and said, this is really a shitty issue. It's that it must be some other ulterior motive. And I'll tell everybody that it's not. And I talk about this a lot, the idea of just because you done it, just this is an aside and happened with the Tim Sheridan stuff this week as well, of the idea if we don't like this book, doesn't mean anything except that we didn't like the book, that we think it's poorly written, the story's not great. just drives me nuts that it's that other thing that gets brought up. And it did with this book. Again, every time an issue comes up, it's brought up. And it's just not good. It's just not great. It's not focusing on our main character. And to me, I wish she wasn't a sad sack. I wish that at this point we kind of got.
I can understand her being a sad sack, but I need a reason for her to move on. That's a part of her continuity that makes sense to the character.
In the deal, like if I'm usually you're set, like what does she expect to, like in all of this, and with the idea of reincarnation, separating, and all that stuff with Shire,
and that's
through
over
the
now.
past to get to this. She's still just doing her deal. I mean, the worst would be is that she would just disappear because here she is, just get on with it.
The worst thing that happened to her at this point in time, like not Scott Snyder's Justice League of Metal, like put that aside because it's weird how all that works. But just think of where we left them in like Blackest Night and the Brightest Day and stuff like that. Where
she talks
Kendra,
about
where Kendra remembered that like her past for the first time with Carter. She realizes she's in love. They're murdered right away by the Black Lanterns, like, Ralph and Sue Dibney, but they're eventually brought back by the end of that whole thing. They could now be Hawkman and Hawkwoman, the reincarnations, because Kendra finally remembers because like all the past lives are now there for her to realize. You jump ahead a bunch of years to like the New 52 into Rebirth with Metal, and she's just there, part of the Justice League, because Scott Snyder just wanted that, that animated TV series Justice League team. So it's there. Oh, let's put her in a relationship with a Martian Manhunter. There was no backstory to it. It's just here's Hawkgirl,
but it's still there, and she's playing like
it's there. It's there now, and we should still have to deal with that. But what Venditti did, like, I'm just going to focus on Shira and Carter Hall, and their story was wrapped up. No more reincarnations. They finally got to possibly live forever, for all I fucking know. But Kendra is left in the cold with everything she loves. So she now has all these memories of a love of somebody, adventures of your lifetimes that she cannot be a part of anymore.
Because I ended up, I was engaged at one point, right? Oh, well, she actually had a kid. It was a weird deal with Shane or whatever, but with Martian Manhunter, whether that was set up or whatever, but Scott Snyder, she ended up dating and having a kid with, and yet, we're just reverting
a future
back
version of them did.
Because in this ends up in that, I still don't, where do you get that? They were actually on the Justice League and went off, and then even when they came back, they were still dating. They were still together
they were dating, but the child they had was a future version of them in a six-dimensional world that was created to be this thing. Shane was just a product of this six-dimensional, like, magic.
It's still,
he was there,
they
but
were still dating, though.
They were still dating, though. They were just dating.
They were dating while you ended up having Carter and Shire. Like, you have to it's just weird that she wants to, and she tries to play it out in this saying, not that she didn't love John, but it was like, well, he kind of used his body to make himself from the kid, and I couldn't deal with that sexually, so I went. It just doesn't work. She's running. She wants to put this whole deal of anger and upsetness, but the characters have done more since then, but she'll only center on that. It's just very odd. To me, it's very odd in the idea of suddenly she's just a sad sack and only will hinge on one thing and one thing only when a lot of other things happen since then. It just seems odd. But again, in a book that I don't think she's ever going to really deal with that stuff, and just think she set up and wrote this story knowing that DC said specifically when this started, you cannot have Carter or Shira in this book. She said that in an interview. So why do that? Like, you can't even really resolve it in your own book except for her to get over it, which I said I think that she already had. But yeah, that's where you get back to status quo, but you'll be applauded. It's just weird. It's a weird
The thing is, you need to deal with that because everything we've had of her just didn't deal with any of that stuff for her. She was just there. She's part of the Blackhawks. She's destroying Nth Metal. Now she's Hawkgirl with Nth Metal wings and, part of the Justice League. That's all we've really had with her.
Dating Martian Manhunter, which in my mind says that she's gotten past that, that she's moving on, she's doing her thing. And in this issue,
you have thousands of years with somebody together and all the memories of that. I don't know.
She had those she moved on. She was dating Martian Manhunter. And you're talking about stuff that there's a lot of people who don't even know what the fuck we're talking about. You have an opportunity in 6 issues to get people on board to really love this character. And I don't see anything in this that makes me want to love Kendra, because she's a sad sack. I mean, what do you like? I love when she's in the fetal position. I love when she ends up being sad and yelling at Carter. Some people are probably like, who's this Carter? What is she yelling at Aaron Carter? Like, it's just, why not?
Aaron Carter?
Why not give a, I couldn't think of any other Carters. So what?
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter. Like, I love that peanut farmer. But, you have this space, just like the cyborg deal. You only have a limited space. Make it so like your first, mission statement is, let me make people fall in love with this character because that's why they'll want to continue. And maybe I'll be able to do more after that. And maybe with the space that you then have, say, I want to deal with this whole idea of the resurrections and what she thinks and how she's left out. It's a weird play to do it in 6 issues to then just end and move on. I just don't get it.
I agree.
But what would you give
But it would have been a good direction when we're focusing more on Galaxy, it seems like.
Yeah, it's weird.
Ultimately, the story's not great, and it's hard to even talk about the idea of what Verpecula's plan is and how Hawkgirl's going to deal with this with Galaxy and the rest of the crew that we have here. It's very convoluted, and like I said, I have trouble saying. The art's fine at points. I actually really enjoy a lot of it, but some of it's like a little iffy here and there. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10, and that's mostly for the story, though, and how things are being presented with the way that how convoluted everything is.
I'm giving it a 3. And I because we didn't talk the last issue, and you obviously have read it to catch up and get to this. When you were reading it, like that idea of that lady who was dead, that was the lady that Kendra brought up in the first issue to Batman that sounded like trash talk, to then say, you don't believe me that the timeline changed, to then have the guy say, I don't want to be bullied. This plan of Verpecula's is all over. Like, there's no real way to explain or understand it, right? And then at this point...
And she keeps doing the same plan and failing, like, well, better try again, the same thing.
At some points, I don't even know if she's failing or not. You end up having side things going on, all the, vroom, vroom engine guy. Like that guy, and then at this point, just to say, screw it, fuck you, Joe Boo. I'm just going to do it myself. I'm like, what? Like, you took that long to just do that? This is bullshit. It's so poorly written. 3 out of 10.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.